From the teachings of Buddha. My disciples, my last moment has come. But do not forget that death is only the end of the physical body. The body was born from parents and was nourished by food, just as inevitable are sickness and death. But the Buddha is not a human body. It is enlightenment. The human body must die, but the wisdom of enlightenment will exist forever in the truth of the Dharma and in the practice of the Dharma. He who sees merely my body does not truly see me. Only he who accepts my teaching truly sees me. During the last 45 years of my life, I have withheld nothing from my teachings. There is no secret teaching, no hidden meaning. Everything has been taught openly and clearly. My dear disciples, this is the end. In a moment, I shall be passing into Nirvana. This is my instruction. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Okay, good morning. Okay, so as Elaine Sensei mentioned, in addition to this being our February monthly memorial, we are also commemorating what is referred to as the Pari, the ultimate nirvana of Shakyamuni Buddha Siddhartha Gautama. And so apparently, I don't know when these paintings were come up with, but this is the way we depict the Buddha's death. The death of the physical person, Shakyamuni. Okay, and apparently they say he was lying on his side and facing to the west with his head pointing north. And I read somewhere that that was the traditional healing posture. When people weren't feeling well, they were put in this position so that they would be in sync with the axis and all these other kinds of healing energies that are part of that culture at the time. So this is how the death scene's been portrayed. So naturally, you see the people surrounding the Buddha and sad, in sorrow. So it accepts the fact that when people, things that we hold dear, pass away, it's painful. But that's to accept our finite condition as sensitive beings that have feelings. And so it acknowledges that. But it reminds us, as I don't know who remembered this statement and who recorded it, but anyway, this is what supposedly was Shakyamuni's final message to those who had followed him for 45 years. And this is something we could continue to reflect upon today. But so that we don't just say how sad, we can also come to some point within the sadness that transforms those tears of sadness into the tears of joy and gratitude. All right, so this past week I had the opportunity to speak to the freshman class of Stewart Hall and Covenant High School. So this was the first time they brought the boys from Stewart Hall and the girls from the Covenant High School world religions class. So I'm their resident authority on Buddhism. Because I always tell them, you know, I'm here to represent everybody who agrees with me. So you might read some other books, you might hear some other talks, and they're saying something completely different. Well, that's their view of how they appreciate this or understand this so-called religion we call Buddhism. Because there are 84,000 versions right? 84,000 paths to the same goal of awakening. So anyway, so how would you address a group of freshmen, high school students, in talking about Buddhism? What would you share? Well, the usual routine that Elaine and I share is we begin with the history of the BCSF and how Jodo Shinshu came to at least San Francisco. And then we kind of gravitate towards what I call general Buddhism, and I refer to it in terms of the 5 W's and H. You know, who, what, where, when, why, how, and so forth. And that's how I usually present Buddhism. Okay? So you might think about it if you were ever given an opportunity to share, you know, what's this religion about? How you might present it, because I'm always open to other suggestions. That's why I even tell the students, if something doesn't make sense, you know, just ask. Or if I can't answer, or if they sometimes have very novel views of what they've understood. And as I'm doing these talks, I see their teachers sitting in the back. And kind of, when I ask, you know how I ask questions a lot. And when the students can't answer, I see the expression on the students, I mean the teacher's face of disappointment. So, but what I empathize with the teachers. Because you know, we try to explain things as best we can, and then when you kind of get a opportunity to get a sense of where people are coming from or thinking about our being part of this community, it is sometimes disappointing and frustrating. But anyway, that's your homework. How would you explain the religion to this point of what you understand? And more importantly, I emphasize, appreciate about what we've heard as the Dharma, the idea of the Nembutsu and so forth. Okay? And if you want to talk about it during coffee time, don't waste your time with that. But at moments of reflection, you know, and some of us, you know, we literally have been here for our whole life, hearing stuff, reading stuff, discussing stuff. But when does that all come together in what I call AOL? AOL, do you know what AOL stands for? It's one of those, what do you call that? AOL. Yeah, acronym, you know, on the internet, right? One of the, is that a server? Provider? Is that what that AOL is about, provider? I can't understand provider, server, URL, whatever. But anyway, AOL, I looked it up, and it's amazing that acronym has about 20 or 30 different versions, okay? But the reason I came up with AOL, that's my newest acronym, AOL, because I was at Emmanji last Sunday, and then I went on this rant. I was talking about, I don't even know why I started into that, but I started talking about, you know, oh, we're going to the BCA National Council. It's the annual general meeting of the Buddhist Churches of America, and all the representatives from all the BCA temples and affiliate groups attend this. And on certain occasions, it did bother me. That's why I say I went on this rant about it, because somebody in the general group would stand up and begin to comment about, you know, our decreasing membership. That's the perennial concern about our temples, that our numbers are going down, and what can we do about it? And then, well, not all the time, but on certain occasions, you know, individuals have stood up and said, what do we have to offer? What do we have to offer? And that's why some people discuss it in terms of, okay, we'll offer pickleball. We'll do, what is it? Ballroom dancing. We'll do karate. We'll do calligraphy. We're going to offer them our newsletter. We get into that kind of discussion. And it used to always bother me, but I couldn't respond. And that was what was bothering me too, that nobody would respond. You know, we all sit there blankly feeling hopeless and helpless because we don't know what we have to offer. But it did occur to me, if that ever happens, okay, remind me when we go to Keith too, remind me in Seattle. Oh, so actually I told the people at Emanji my thoughts on that. And I asked one of them, or asked the ones that are going to Seattle to remind me of this. Because I forget, when you get those questions and it catches you off guard, you're speechless. You feel blank. Okay, here it is, AOL. Can you see in the back, Gene? No? Okay, well, Keith will have to help me enlarge this more. Okay. Dana, can you see this? No? Okay, well, Soji, you can see it, right? Very simple. I mean, it's not so simple to do, but this is how I would respond if that question were to come up again. What do we have to offer? I'll just say appreciation of life. Makes sense? Makes sense. Isn't that what we're trying to do with our life? To appreciate having been born as a human being, which is to hear the Dharma, which is to wake up and realize our oneness in and within immeasurable life. Namo Amida Butsu. And to me, this makes sense. That's what I keep on doing during that high school class. I keep on stopping and saying, does this make sense? Because I gave it my SOB acronym. Because the Dharma helps us to realize a sense of being alive. Okay? So, that's what I think Siddhartha did. He appreciated being born as a human being and came alive. We call it enlightened. But basically, he had a deep sense of being alive by virtue of the innumerable, immeasurable, we use the term amida, immeasurable life that sustains and surrounds us just as we are and brings us together in oneness. And that, oh, by the way, I decided I'll go ahead and plug this book. It's my newest Bible. Why Buddhism is True. So we have a few copies in the inventory, in the library and so forth. And it was a New York Times bestseller. Was it last year or the year before?
2 years ago, I think.
2 years ago? Okay, Robert Wright. And he's the guy that wrote the book. I forgot what the title of that book was, but he wrote about Darwinism. How scientifically, how human beings evolved, or the whole reality or nature of evolution. And he's connected that to his appreciation of Buddhism and mindfulness that helps us to realize that process, how it impacts our lives, and then come to a sense of appreciation, concern for each other, compassion. Okay, so anyway, so this is my current go-to book. And yeah, very, to me, direct, simple, focused. And I think that's what we're looking for, is focus in our life. Okay? And focus of being alive. And then he has a whole chapter on nirvana in a nutshell. But he does clarify, we talk about nirvana before and after. Before death and after death. So I think the way he describes it very helpful, is that you realize nirvana here and now as a way of appreciating your life now. And then nirvana after death is when you're able to let it all go. Break out of the cycle of delusion. So as long as we're alive physically, we have 6 senses. that are going to entrap us into that cycle. Even though we're aware of it, we can't really get out of it because we're just physically, instinctually, subject to those senses. But the physical death after that awakening is the release, liberation. So you have present liberation and then ultimate liberation, nirvana. So anyway, very helpful and something that I would recommend if you're so inclined to want to know what's our religion. I won't say religion, but I think for me, and this reminds me of when I mentioned how during one of the summer Dharma schools, and I was asking the kids to give one word of Buddhism for Buddhism. How would you express Buddhism in one word? And one of the young people there, Martin Nowitzki, his response really impressed me, was life. Buddhism is life. Teaches us what our life is about. And it's about awakening to the truth, the Dharma. And it helps us to recognize, okay, and this is a little long, and I don't know, I'm not comfortable with it, but what the heck, I just try stuff and see what works and sometimes doesn't connect, but okay. So we're all concerned about what's really important in our life, right? Isn't that a ultimate concern? That's what definition of religion. Thinking about what's important. Okay? So, in my personal opinion, rating thoughts or things are necessarily true. So basically, what we think is important is basically what I think or feel is true. Okay? But something I'm thinking about with this is how you'll note that I judge, I decide. So it's very personal, but is it true? Is it necessarily true? Sure, in my opinion, but that's all it is. It's a personal opinion. But is it true? What is true? Well, the Dharma. And that's why, when I get into the discussion with the high school students, I've been talking about, well, actually, I have a third eye now. I used to always refer to it as the two eyes of the Dharma. But then one of the students gave me a thought about maybe I should add the eye of ignorance. To see ignorance with the two eyes of truth. So there are three eyes. To see ignorance, the foolishness of my thoughts, the craving of my wanting things my own way and so forth, or not things that I don't like. But the two eyes are what? What do we usually refer to in terms of the Dharma, the truth of the Dharma? And basically for me, I present it in terms of two eyes. Impermanence and interdependence. But also when that student mentioned ignorance, I think that's it from a Shin perspective, an important insight. Oh, maybe I'll add insight. 4 eyes. Okay, but ignorance. Because when I'm so convinced that I'm right, I don't listen to anything else. I don't hear anything else. I don't feel anything other than I'm right. And that kind of is the basic instinctual approach to my interactions with what's going on around me. So anyway, but it basically, for me, boils down to the two eyes of impermanence and interdependence. That everything continues to change, never stays the same, but most importantly, to appreciate that nothing happens alone. Nothing exists alone. And to have that sense of aliveness, of just as I am, to be able to live This momentary experience we call human life is the basis of appreciation. So, if we could, well then, aside from appreciation of life, I have another AOL. I have a lot of AOLs. But the awareness of light. The awareness of light. That's the light of the Dharma. The awareness of life helps us to realize an appreciation for life. Namo Amida Butsu. So, with that, let's see, what is my closing reading? Oh, yeah. Okay. So today we're going to have a very busy schedule. We have our BWA meeting, and then the BCSF board meeting, and then we're also preparing the meal for tomorrow's winter shelter dinner. Okay, so this is all part of being a Sangha. An authentic Sangha is where truth and wisdom are its light and compassion its life, where people come together and are mindful of the universal interdependence of all life, appreciating things in common while respecting each other's differences. We join together to celebrate and commemorate the life and ministry of Shakyamuni Buddha, and to those who have passed in the month of February. So in the light and life that is Amida Buddha, we have come together to participate in this community and realizing the blessings we enjoy in a spirit of thanksgiving, a oneness that unites and sustains us all. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.